Emily Stewart, EDS 206, Multicultural Education. So the first thing that I kind of want to do is give a good overview of the article leaning in a student's guide to engaging constructively with social justice content. So I think here the article's authors are really trying to vocalize that social injustice issues occur, and they want to give us a framework for how to cope with and to begin to solve social inequities. So part of the main point that I think the authors make is that they believe society is ill-prepared to deal with these issues. So actually in the article it states, quote, the first is that many of us are underprepared to engage in the course content in scholarly ways, unquote. So I think we can know that it's saying most college students are underprepared to discuss issues of social inequity, and because of this, it's really ineffective to discuss these issues because we aren't ready to change our habits. And also, I think that it's arguing that when we as a society are presented with social inequity issues, we like to believe that we kind of quote-unquote have it all together, and that these issues don't exist, in a sense that we would have a more peaceful world because these issues really don't exist. So I think the authors here are really trying to give us a framework for realizing that there are social injustice issues, and so these 5 main guidelines that they give us for attempting to engage in constructive conversation about social inequity, I would just kind of like to briefly summarize each guideline. So guideline number 1, strive for intellectual humility. So I think this guideline is just really talking about how a person can open up his or herself to a constructive conversation about social inequity. It's really saying that when we talk about these issues, we must have an open mind to the fact that others do have different opinions, or they interpret things in a different manner, but that we just don't know everything about these issues. The second guideline being everyone has an opinion. Opinions are not the same as informed knowledge. So here I think that all the authors are trying to say is that everybody has an opinion, a right to an opinion, but opinions alone are not the same as cold hard facts. You must be able to back up your opinion with some sort of background knowledge or statistics. And the third guideline, let go of anecdotal evidence and instead examine patterns. This one I'm going to look up a little more in depth coming up, but I think that the author's main point here was to say that anecdotes alone are not sufficient evidence to generalize about populations or to generalize about social inequity, but rather we must look at these issues from a systematic and holistic point of view. And the fourth guideline is use your reactions as entry points for gaining deeper self-knowledge. So I think this guideline is just saying to realize that social justice issues can be very emotionally overwhelming, and that this is normal to have these kind of emotions, but it's more of what we do with these emotions that allow us to either be constructive or deconstructive when talking about social inequity. The fifth guideline is recognize how your social position informs your reactions to your instructor and those whose work you study in the course. So I think this last one to me is talking about the positions in society that we were all born into and how those identities have shaped our experiences and how we perceive things then in relation to other people. And so as a future teacher, I want to think about how my emotions, my open-mindedness, and my position in society all affect the way that I develop an understanding for each one of my students and where their experiences that they all bring to the table, put them in terms of society and how we can all work to gain a common understanding of each other. So going back a little bit, I want to kind of take an in-depth look on that third guideline, let go of anecdotal evidence and instead examine patterns. First, I'd like to give you a few things that I agree with, and then I'll give you a few things that I push back on and why I push back on those. So a couple of things I agree with in this particular guideline is that I think patterns and observable trends are really important to look at, but I think that anecdotes alone are not simply enough when confronting a global issue like this. So I agree with that. In social inequity, not everyone has the same experiences, so by just looking at a couple of anecdotes, you're not able to generalize. But I also think that you must step out of your frame of reference and try and begin to imagine why others feel the way that they do about a certain topic. So a few things that I disagree with. I almost feel like this article is implying that anecdotes need to be taken out of constructive conversation because anecdotes are exceptions and somehow unconstructive. And when they say anecdotes are only hearsay and thus are superficial, I actually think that anecdotes help to tell us what kind of language and actions our society has used to lead to the social inequity that we already have. And so by listening to these anecdotes, we can see what we can change about our everyday actions and habits in order to come closer to a good solution for social inequities. The last kind of tidbits of this that I want to touch on is when the article states, quote, "The goals of college and university classes are to expand one's ability to make sense of everyday events, issues, and incidences," unquote. Yes, I do agree with this, but I can also see why these issues occur if we actually do take a look at anecdotes of people that have been through these issues, what kind of language works with them as far as minorities, what kind of actions we have taken as a society to make minorities feel the way that they do and why social inequities occur. And the last kind of part of this is when it says, quote, "Our anecdotes are not universal, they form a particular perspective," unquote. I actually believe that all anecdotes in social inequity are important and they relate in some aspect to the understanding of social issues and are important to know where others are coming from. So a couple of things that I'm going to do to develop in this class is I want to look through my cultural lens and belief system to form observations and opinions based upon those observations. I want to look at research and have background facts about social inequity as well as have an open mind for others and their personal experiences. I want to welcome people's anecdotes and their personal experiences as well as welcome fact and a framework for actually being able to generalize about social inequity. And then the last thing that I kind of want to develop throughout this course in order to see patterns as well as anecdotal evidence as supplement to those patterns is balance anecdotes and statistics and facts to form ideas on how to start a constructive conversation on why social inequity occurs and how it can be changed and how we can reach a more common solution for changing social inequity issues. Thank you.